Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back to talk about the finale of the final week of Survivor, Brains versus Brawn. And Shannon said it was the best week, and it delivered here as we talked about maybe the greatest final two ever. Here we are with the queen of International Survivor. Here she is. It's Shannon Guss. Shannon, how are you?
Great, Rob. Thank you for having me. But in this, the repeat crowning of Haley Leak, we can only use Queen for one person, but I appreciate it. And I'm glad that the week lived up to my enormous hype, calling it the best week for you and for me. Honestly, I was like, that's a high bar. Will it even clear it for me? But I think it was good. 2-1-1, Rob. You've never seen a 2-1-1, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Baby's first 2-1-1. It's beautiful.
Yes, this was great. I mean, really, the finale was great, but also like the final 5 and the final 4 episodes were really, really strong and interesting votes. So I'm looking forward to exploring all that here with you. But it's also a bittersweet podcast as we are coming to the end of our 8-week journey back to 2021.
I know we're going to have to come up with what we're doing next on the podcast production style, as is our routine. We should just catch up. I feel like we should just catch up in this weekly spot every week.
Okay, how about this? What if every week you come on and I catch you up on what's happened in Big Brother each week?
I love it.
Yeah, no? Do you really?
Well, the casual Big Brother podcast I did also 3 years ago was maybe the most fun podcast I've ever done. No offense, because I've done many with you. Okay, it's up there with many of the ones I've done with you. I don't know. It was so freeing. Firstly, being Big Brother, and
like,
secondly,
Shannon,
not having to care.
You're not gonna believe what happened this week.
Yeah. Okay. Is that our next adventure?
Let's think about it. Yeah.
Maybe not every week. Maybe we can make it a bi-monthly.
Okay. But yeah, a lot to unpack here with George and Haley. So this should be like a really fun one to get into. Shannon and I just talked about Claim to Fame the other night. I know one of Shannon's favorites.
Yes, I did something else other than this podcast. So
and this was appropriate because of how much we had visits from the loved ones in the finale.
Yes, well, that's what we always have in Australian Survivor in the final challenge.
Yeah,
and Claim to Fame is so good as well. So what a fun week! So much good content.
So really, like, our podcasting in 2023, I mean, really did kick off with when we were, checking in for every week on Survivor, Heroes versus Villains, and I said at the time that Australian Survivor is objectively better than US Survivor in every measurable way. And we talked to, and certainly there is on further review. Yeah, on further review, there's some things. The casting, I think, does a better job of like a more evenly cast season and things like that. But overall, in terms of like the gameplay, the game design, to me, flaws and all here in Survivor Brains versus Brawn, that the final week was epic in a way that I don't even believe that a Survivor US like finale could ever be, because even if it's like so exciting, it's so condensed at the end of the game of where we start the finale now in the modern era with Final 5. So basically, the 3 episodes that we watched this week, which was, almost like 4+ hours, is 3 hours in one night with the, not so great reunion show, which honestly, I didn't miss here. I feel like that we, it was a very satisfying end to the show. I think if I was watching at home and I turned it off at the end of the night, I'm like, okay, that was great. I would have liked the reunion, but it was fine. And I just feel like that this was so much more satisfying than the way that the US Survivor would be formatted for these same like Final 5, Final 4, Final Tribal Council.
Yeah, well, the tragedy is now that Australian Survivor has gone to Final 3s and that we lost, that this was our last Final 2, and who knows if the Medivacs help, because the Final 2, it's so beautiful. I'm a massive pro Final 2 person. So we already get that. We get this binary, and we get, as we'll talk about, possibly the best final two of all time. Then you have this epic final three challenge, and no one does it like Australian Survivor, with the torture chambers that I'm going to want your opinion on, that they stood in for upwards of 5 hours. And then you get to a final four vote, something we don't get in the final four of US Survivor, which was so beautiful. 2-on-1, amazing. And all of their perspectives were so important. And there have been so many 2-on-1 votes, Rob, that you haven't seen in International Survivor, because we get the beauty of that, especially getting down to a final two, and how people really need to think about, how is this final challenge going to stack up for me? And there's all these different incentives which create a vote like that. And then the final five, George was just splitting it in a really cool way, in a way that he had to think about to get down to final four and a final three vote, which we're not going to have. So there's so much strategy left to play. Whereas like when the final five is the last voting round, then very little matters, you know?
But additionally, also the final tribal council format, I think, is superior than, you know, and I was initially a proponent of like sort of the group talking it through and coming to a decision, because I felt like that we would get people who were, you know, like helping to make the case for certain players on both sides, but that really hasn't been the case, especially in the last run. So to have where, you know, Emmett has like his chance to ask his question, and Danny has her chance to ask her questions, and so on. It's just, I feel like so much more drama where it's just like the one, no, answer my question, you know, back and forth. Like, I think it's so much more dramatic at the final tribal council, and it's overall just really, really fun. I love like even like the stagecraft of like when Haley wins and fireworks are going off, and it's
when she
like
fake wins.
When
because they do both of them.
Okay, that's wild that they do that. I mean,
and then they find out like the day of.
So okay, so they filmed the George winning ending.
Yeah, and I filmed both on Talking Tribal, by the way. When I do Talking Tribal, I don't know who wins. I get it right up to the vote. And yeah, so I filmed both Haley and George. And I'm sure there's a great winner quote from me about George out there that's never going to get played. But so yeah, I mean, Haley sold it. Haley probably knew she had it, so I think that one's believable as well.
All right, well, we'll get there, but it's just like in terms of like the pyrotechnics and everything, like it's so much cooler than bring in the big sign, get me a pizza, come on, or sign the poster. Yeah,
like that was for charity, Rob. Come on.
It was still this was
kids, assuming that was what I was going to.
No, stop it. But this was, to me, very, very fun. And I also want to say that I said, I think, I don't know if it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I'm like, Flick was an all-star. Like, I don't see it. I mean, Flick did shine more towards the end of the game than she had. I mean, she's really presented as the person who has all the jury votes. You know, she can win the challenges. She is like a formidable challenge opponent for Haley coming down the stretch. And so Flick, I think, does get her due by the end of the season.
Yeah, I would have liked to see more of that edit throughout, but she has like such a unique story. I think that it was a very worthwhile return. And then we have the whole final three and Simon on Heroes versus Villains. So this is why Brains versus Brawn is very much like essential reading before Heroes versus Villains, because we get all of that.
After.
And I think and after, but now I feel like you should go back and rewatch Heroes versus Villains, and then you'll see all the little things, all the Flick George stuff. Is that what we're doing?
Coming next week. We got to go back.
I can't do it so soon, Rob. Okay. Maybe ever. No, it's a great season. But
what did you do in the initial run when you did the recap of this week?
So they split it last minute. They split. So it was the penultimate week was 5 and 4, and then the finale was by itself the next Sunday night. So they did Sunday, Monday, Sunday. So then I had to do another podcast, which I think was really bad. I think it was such a bad
We've corrected the mistake.
Yeah, when I do that on purpose, because I really feel like you're running to something here, and that run is to the best final two of all time. Even imagine so if you didn't know that was going to happen. So epic final 5 vote into an epic final 4 vote into like, oh my God, we're like running downhill into this amazing outcome. But then there was like a week in between. So I spoke about it with Jackie Glazier, of all people. Actually, I think she even commented on playing with George at a point. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out for a long time. But we talked about that for the penultimate week. And then the finale, I had Nick and Mike. So we talked for over 3 hours about the whole season.
Okay.
And yeah.
At the time, what was the response to all of this?
From who?
From you, from overall, if you could just paint me that picture, because I don't have that context.
I loved every second of it. I thought Haley was an amazing winner. I thought Haley and George being crowned as the final two, which was something I'd never thought could happen before the final five, was the most phenomenal outcome. The audience was mad. A lot of the audience was really mad. The casual audience was really mad that George had won, which was crazy because they were just recently so mad that he sat down in the challenges and Haley had won so many challenges. But it was a lot of like bitter jury, which was something we spoke about that I'd like to talk about today. It was a lot of Haley didn't do anything, which was crazy because have you watched Haley's game? Like she did too much. It's the opposite. So I think a lot of the casuals were very mad because George was just such a big character.
Yeah.
And so beloved. But
so I do think that it's interesting. And I'd love to know from you, from your deep dives, did George feel like he had a good shot to win or a decent shot to win from your conversations with him when he went to the final two tribal council?
I think he even says it in the show. Like, I think his awareness was good. I think he knew it was a really hard path, but he got snookered into a place as a, poorer challenge competitor where it's like, how's he going to get there? He wants to get there with Kara. How's he getting there with Kara? If he wanted to get to a final three with, say, Wei and Kara from a physical standpoint, then Wei has to be sacrificed at the final five. Like, it got really difficult to think about who's the person I can sit next to at the end, but also that I could get to at the end with one of us having to win a very, very physical endurance challenge.
But when he sits there with Haley, does he feel like that he can beat Haley, or does he know going in that he is probably, 90%, 95% Haley's going to win?
I don't know if he'd say 95%. I think he thinks he's going in on the back foot. What he described it as, and this won't make sense, is like a Labour vote in Vaucluse. So that's meaningless to you. But it's a suburb that always votes the opposite party. And yes, they could flip, but it would be very, very unlikely. He knew that he would be pulling votes with extreme difficulty.
Because I feel like that this was such a contrast of styles in the final two, where obviously Haley is the better approach, because I feel like that Haley's final tribal speech was tailored to the jury. But I do feel like that George, who also I thought gave a pretty masterful tribal council performance, but I felt like that it was one that was especially his opening statements. I felt like that he had some definitely some faux pas during the questioning, but his opening statement I thought was quite epic. But it was one that I felt like that was more geared for the audience. But it was one geared for the people at home and wasn't tailored to the way that people actually vote in final tribal councils.
Yeah, I always say that people in the final tribal council aren't facing the same jury. It's kind of like that thing that no child has the same parent, because you parent every child differently based on a range of factors. This is a psychological thing. But anyway, it's the same. I mean, you sit in a final tribal council, you're looking at a different jury. The jury wants to vote for Haley. Like, not that she wasn't phenomenal, but it's an easy game to sell. And it's exactly what they want. And it's perfectly well-rounded and such a credit to her game. But George is selling them something they don't want. Like, they don't want the anti-physical. So much of it is like taking down the Brawn. Many of them are Brawn. Like, a lot of the accolades are either insults or things they don't care about or actively like dislike. So I just think he has a tough run. But I think for me, I don't know if it changes a lot, but it's all in like Emmett asking if he regrets and him not apologizing. And I was just thinking, like, if you are in the final tribal council, like you should just pick up on what the jury wants to hear and then just say it. Like, why am I doing more of that? And then when it's done, be like, I meant nothing. Like,
Shannon, I feel like that it's so rare in the final tribal council. People, for whatever reason, tend to not just like lie through their teeth at final tribal council. Anything. I think that maybe like Chris in Vanuatu is like one of the only people that was like, okay, yeah, he's definitely still lying in the final tribal council. For whatever reason, we talked about this a lot in the evolution of strategy. It's like people just feel like, oh, this truth serum at the final tribal council. I'm under oath. I have to say the true answer. But I do wonder if George, and this is why I've been asking these questions, is that if George knows he's not going to win, is part of it also, I don't want to give the satisfaction to the people that are asking me, would I have changed anything? Because they give him a lot of like off ramps of like, do you regret this? Would you have changed this? How would you have done things differently? And he's like very much maintains, nope, I would have done it the same way. I had to do it this way. I would have done it this way. And I feel like that he either wanted like to was speaking to the audience at home or just was like, I don't want to give them this because they're not going to vote for me anyway.
I don't think that he would be as defeatist as that. I do think that there is an element of like, you can't just say everything the jury wants to hear because you have to sell a consistent story. So you have to have like a good sense of yourself and it has to fit in with that. But I still think that there are ways that you can manage that and tell the jury what they want to hear. And if they're saying, you know, you don't have to regret your whole game, but you can find little nuances, which is, I think, something Haley does very well. But knowing George as I do now and how much he cares about the TV product, especially in Heroes versus Villains, where it felt like, well, this seems really tough, but I'm going to get as far as I can and beat King George, and I'm coming back on this show 50 times. You know, George's dog was on TV tonight. I think he does have like such a keen awareness for the TV product. And not that he was like, I've definitely lost, but I think in thinking I probably lost, and what you're saying, like talking for the audience, let this be the coronation. He had such a strong story around the king and queen and how much respect he has for Haley's game and them doing it together. So yeah, come out and like really advocate for your game in this really strong way and let people remember King George, and they did, and he's going to be on The Amazing Race, and he definitely like has always won in the TV department. He's so good at that.
Yes, he's so good at that. And so I really come away, you know, I've watched both of Georgia's seasons in 2023, and I think he is such a good player. But I think that there are other people that are better at the game overall than he is. But I don't know if there's anybody who's better than him at the TV of being a survivor.
Yeah, did you say he was like the best global character? You said he was like top 3, I think. Definitely you said that.
I just feel like that he is, and there are certainly other entertaining people, as we've saw just even in this year alone on Survivor. But in terms of knowing what he is doing, he is Picasso in the confessional. He gives the show exactly what they need to tell their story, and he does it in such a way where he is so brilliant at being a person on TV playing Survivor. And so it's just so fun to watch.
Yeah, it's almost like they should hire him to teach how to give a confessional to the influencers they insist on casting every year. Like, hey, this is what Survivor is. Firstly, 101. Welcome to George's class. And then we're going to learn about confessionals. Some of you might even get some. Not everyone. Not you don't have confessionals to go around for every single person, but maybe they should do that. Yeah, I mean, I came away from this season more impressed with George on Brains versus Brawn. And I do think that, you know, knowing how good he is on Heroes versus Villains, and he exceeded my expectations on that season. But looking back and knowing that he's capable of it, I've looked at it in a better light. Again, like not being as overwhelmed by the character. But one of the big things that I was like insistent on in 2021 was like, this was not a bit of jury. I think because I had to fight so hard in defending Haley against the many detractors who upset she lost against George, or all of the reasons. But I still maintain like Haley for me is the better player, played the better season, definitely from a all-round perspective and the challenges in the social game. And I even said for the strategic game, and I think it's very close between them. But I definitely think there's definitely an argument there. And I think that what my 2023 perspective, the difference is like many of the jurors were bitter against George. That's true. And also Haley like actively earned this win in her own merit. And like, I feel like now I know that both things can be true. Like George might have sat next to Kara, maybe lost, or maybe not got those votes of jurors who were definitely bitter. That's not what happened. He obviously sat next to Haley. She earned it, but you can't not say like, I'm definitely like Emmett was bitter. I think Andrew was bitter. I think a few people were kind of mad about played.
I think they would have given Flick the win over Haley.
But I don't think that would be bitter. And they would have, I think. But I think that would have just been social bonds and story. Which is, all of it's fair. You can say a bitter juror is fair, so I don't want to, take away from that. But I think it would have been a bit of a different thing. Whereas I feel like it wasn't just George's social game with someone like an Emmett. I think that Emmett was particularly mad that George screwed him over. Like, I think that's particularly bitter. It's not like I didn't get along with you. I mean, fair enough, social game. I think it was
Shannon, we don't have to like interpret if this was a bitter jury or not. You had Emmett and also Andrew saying like, hey, it's not about me winning the game. It's about making sure there are certain people I don't want to win the game. Like both of them said versions of that. So, it's hard to imagine a scenario where they're going to vote for George. And you're right. I think that Kara probably does beat George in the final 2.
I mean, I can't believe that that's true. And that's what George thinks in this week. That's what he talks through. And I think his read like, even if that's not particularly correct, like, so, okay, we should go back, by the way. This is part of the recap now, because are we going back to the third last episode? Because that
Yeah.
makes,
I mean, I
because this is
think
when he
that
talks
in a
about it.
season that's been over for 2 years, I don't know if we have to go through things like completely chronologically. I think this was
Well, because people, aren't watching the recap, you know.
people aren't watching the recap.
No, people are really doing the recap because people don't necessarily rewatch,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Help you.
Well,
But
I think
just
we
to
should.
remind people.
Oh, I think we're doing perfect so far. But
Do you think so?
yes, I think so because I think that you want to talk about the most exciting thing first.
All right. Well, let's every 20 minutes do this check-in of our
Would be
check-in of how
happy
the
to.
check-in's going. That's
Yeah.
great. That's all the validation that I need. Actually, I would need it like every 2 minutes, but let's do it every 20 minutes. But basically at the beginning of the week, George is saying that he wants to sit with Haley because he doesn't want to sit next to even Wei and Kara because he feels like they would be a whole different criteria of vote. So, if you're voting about, like, you don't want to vote for someone who screwed you over, like Haley and George might both have an issue there. So they might both be talking to people who are mad at them, and then it might be on gameplay, although I think they were a lot madder at George, and maybe he underestimated that.
Mm-hmm.
But even someone like Kara, who they're not as mad at, I mean, if you're looking at it, so who does Kara get? Even like with Kara's obviously like strategic mistakes. Like, so I think George gets Haley. Clearly he gets Laura because he gets Laura now.
Mm-hmm.
Baden. I think over Carl, he was close with both, but I think he could get Baden. And then maybe like a Flick. Like Flick keeps saying George is the best. Like, I feel like she should vote for him, maybe. And then what? Andrew, Gerald, Emmett, Danny, and Wei. I mean, it's possible. It's in the balance. All of those votes are big ifs for George, I feel.
Yeah. So it would be interesting. George was in a tight spot. It's interesting though the way that he's considered in his second season, though, for whatever reason. I do wonder if it's sort of like just the idea of the framing of the season. Of in the second season he plays, it's heroes versus villain, and yeah, he is like there are villains there, and I think that they like okay, George is doing what he came here to do. But in Brains versus Brawn, that it seems like that because George is like, okay, well, I am just totally not even going to engage with the Brawn side of things. It was almost like that people on the jury felt like, well, then your case is invalid because you've only focused on one aspect of the game. And Haley was able to have a much easier case to say, I am the embodiment of a well-rounded Survivor player.
Do you know what irritates me though?
What's that?
Like, if Flick had won that final challenge and taken George,
yes,
they would have voted for Flick to win. And she would have voted correctly one time in the merge.
Right.
But they would have said that because you've won a couple of challenges and you play, and that would have been their prerogative. But don't tell me that you need a well-rounded player or someone can't leave something out.
But
they
this
can't
is
leave
what
out the
I
Brawn
say
aspect.
all the time about the final tribal council. The jury will vote for the person they like the most, and then they'll craft the reasons around like, oh, well, Gabler, he's made fire. That was, I mean, you got to give it to him. He made fire. And then, it's like, well, like Heidi, she made fire, but, Jam, he's very social. He's played a very
I think those are, but I get what you're saying, but I think it's more complex than what you're, I don't think it's who they like the most.
Yeah.
I think it's what they want to do. Like, there's something undefined of just a feeling of want. And like sometimes that is social because social is vague like that, like hard to specify. But it's obviously very super valid. And all of this is valid. I keep saying the word valid, but I don't want to say any of this is invalid. But I think it's just like, here's what I want to do deep down in my soul. And can we unpack the reasons why? The reasons why might take many years of therapy to work it out. Maybe I do like them more. Maybe it makes me feel better about myself. Maybe, because voting as a juror is so intertwined with how you feel about yourself and how that person's going to be the winner who beat you in this thing that you've tried to do. What are the psychological reasons I'm doing it? I don't have the time to unpack it, but let me slap a reason onto it. So I don't think it's as neat as I like you more, so I'm doing it. I think it's I vaguely want you to win for reasons that you might be able to define, maybe not. And that's often social, not always. And then you put the reasons on it. And I think that's pretty true.
I like you more, it's just like shorthand for, they're going to do whatever they feel like. And then, they move the goalposts based on, what they ultimately want to do.
I think it's more heart than head is what we're saying. But then they put those logical reasons onto it for whatever
Mhm.
they feel inside. And then you start to assign blame to the people who are in the final tribal council around how much is it on them for not gaining that want, that thing deep inside. But if you can't even define that, then how much can be on them? Is that something that is just an internal thing with that juror? Could they never shift the goalposts away from that? Is it too murky? Is it too internalized? Even if it
Mhm.
is, should the onus still be on you as a final tribal council competitor to get it to that point? And all of the stuff is so fascinating to me. I've actually had the most interesting conversations with Omar about this recently, just about jurors and the place you come out of the game in and the trauma you've experienced and like just all of the psychological things that you're sitting with. And I think that finding where like your basically guiding light wants to have that win is so complicated for you and the player still in the game.
Mhm.
I feel like this is getting very
Was
murky,
this
but
an
I'm so
offline
fascinated by it.
conversation with Omer?
Yeah, we just chatted about it.
Wow, look at
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is what Omer and I do all the time. But yeah, and I just think that it's interesting because it's such a difficult, complicated time and it's all such complicated things. And I feel like the jurors try to smooth it out for themselves in a way that makes sense. And then we as analysts try to do that. And it's just so much more complicated than that. And that's why it's so fascinating. But anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know how that tangent happened,
Well,
but it did.
I think that's just one of the biggest flaws in, what it is that we do and how fans look at the show. I just feel like that fans come away and they look at oh, well, this person should have won because they did blah, 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 blah. And that's just not how jurors often see the game. They have all sorts of different metrics. And if what they decide doesn't line up with what we've seen as viewers, then people get very mad. But the jury, I don't know if maybe it's because they try to come in and say, it was wide open. It was completely objective.
Yeah, I don't know why
And
they always try to say that.
they always try to say that. I wonder if they came out and said, yeah, no, like there was no chance, George, or like we were not going to vote for George tonight. Then maybe we're like, oh, okay. But they
But
make
it's
it seem
because
like,
they want to see themselves as impartial. It's so internal. It's like, oh,
mhm.
I would never rule someone out. That's so emotional. I'm hearing it out. I'm taking this position so seriously. Like it's they're lying to themselves
Well,
often. I think
yeah,
just to
I
believe
mean,
that.
it's such a flaw of the human condition that every single person mostly thinks that, like, well, I'm very impartial, and thinks everybody else isn't. So, and they're probably right about everybody else and wrong about themselves. But that being said, I do also want to just highlight Haley because we've been talking so much about
Yeah,
George, and I don't want it to get overshadowed because Haley did a really incredible job. And that's why I feel like that this was like the best, most enjoyable final two to watch because George came out and gave his like really epic speech. Even JLP is like, wow. But then Haley came out and she gave equally as great of a final tribal council opening speech and then was also incredible with the questioning.
yeah. I guess. Well, and that's what we've been saying. With the juries, I think what it is like humans are flawed and jurors are extremely traumatized humans, and that's so layered. And then we and they try to wrap it up in a neat little package, and we still struggle to do so 23 years later. But I don't think that that's what it is here. I think we can talk through like what are George's, how much were people not giving him the benefit of the doubt? How much is that on him? How much was that on them? And there was nothing he could do because he just was outplaying them. But aside to that, Haley's such a phenomenal winner in her own right. Her game is so easy to sell. She sells it so well. She knows exactly what the jury wants to hear. She gives it to them. And I mean, I think she played an amazing game. I still think she's
Mhm.
probably the best player in Australian Survivor. So none of like these conversations are so fascinating and they matter less to this dichotomy, I think. But
Yeah.
because I think, I was rooting, I don't know, I was rooting for both of them. I love them both, but never gonna say no to a Haley win. Was so happy about it. I think she's a phenomenal winner. So I don't yeah, it's an interesting conversation, but
She was
Haley step into
really,
that
really
makes so much
good.
sense. No question marks. Yeah.
What was wild was when in Survivor Heroes vs. Villains, when George was like, I want to go to the end with Haley again. I want to like, what are you, dude? Like, why would you want that?
I think he was
Go with
right. I think
literally anybody else.
no, I think he would have won, and I think Haley knew that because I think it was such a different game.
But the degree
But
of
she could have spoken to
difficulty.
it. Yeah, she's great at Final Tribal Council, and you know that.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, in my finale podcast, we asked like who is most likely to come back and win, and we all had returnees. So Nick said Flick, and Mike said Simon, and I said Haley. And I think that was a good call by me. Like I was all in again. I'm like, I trusted to do it again, back it up. And I think that was a good bet, even though she didn't win. Should have been George, actually. George came pretty close. But
yeah.
Anyway, it's a hard game for George. I think that this was such a fascinating week because it's George managing a very difficult end game. Kind of like he does in Heroes versus Villains, right? Well, like, how does he get to a point where we can see him win with this physical limitation and possibly some mad jurors across the board?
Yeah. All right, so I guess let's talk about how George ultimately finds himself in this position as we start the week with the final five.
Yeah, so the final five was a very fun time. Again, they're talking through. George is saying he doesn't want to sit with Cara and Wei. He wants to sit with Haley. He's like, my only chance is against you. You know, George is very frank. He's not going to be subtle about that. And he tells us in confessional as well, like he and Haley, he feels are like the bottom of the barrel from a jury perspective. And again, I'm not so sure that's true, but I definitely get his idea on like, she's the same criteria as me. And then I can just talk about my strategic game, hoping people would also be mad at Haley in a way that they just weren't at Wei and Cara. Also, he says that he has executed more moves than people in 2 seasons of Australian Survivor. And knowing George, he definitely has specific examples in mind. And I want to know who he was thinking of when he was talking through who were the 2 people. Or he said, many people. He probably thinks every single person who played 2 seasons, he executed more moves, right?
I would think so. I mean, it's hard to argue a case he worked so hard.
Yeah, he really did a lot. So anyway, we're going to get to this point. Well, it's a Wei episode where they get to the challenge and Wei can't make her way across the beam. And George helps her, Rob.
Yes.
Cheering.
Yes, that was great. That he is going to help Wei get across. And it's just so, for me, I thought that was just like really fun poetry here of here's George again. He's going to help Wei. Wei, that George has identified, Wei needs my help.
She didn't ask to be carried, bro.
I'm here to help Wei. And I really was wondering if it was going to come around to back to the first tribal council where she's like, George, I didn't ask you. I don't owe you anything. I didn't ask to be helped. But it's also in the same episode, then he helped her and then also is working to orchestrate her ouster from the game.
Yeah, one of the reasons that this is my favorite week of the season is because so many beautiful narrative elements like come full circle. And it's the fact that Wei, I think she even said to me in the exit and in the show, is like, oh, I don't know if I should really be going for George because she felt indebted to him again, Wei. Like, we're past this. From day 2, like the debt. And then George is going to cut her as collateral. But yeah, this ended up with an interesting discussion around helping in challenges. And 2021 me was like, oh, it's kind of unfair. But 2023 me, when it was happening in Heroes versus Villains, loves it. And I can feel myself coming around on the podcast. I'm like, it is interesting from a strategic perspective. And I'm back around. So I'm into it.
What do you think in terms of US Survivor? Would they let this fly where there was something where like could another contestant like carry a person in a challenge to help them get across?
I think we said no, right? Because
I think no, right?
Because Adam helped Ken, but that was verbal.
Yeah,
and we've had that as well. We've had in Australian Survivor, we had like verbal challenges, and then we had.
I feel like Jeff would shut this down.
Matt. Well, he did with Sophie and was it Albert? Yeah, with the when she said drop your stack. So, but and this is the thing is that they were clearly like when like the thing is. What's difficult about this is it's a moment of helping in a challenge, which is like a rules thing, but then it's also like a balance beam moment. It's just ever shutting down like Heather.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I feel like that they would not like want there to be this kind of like just make it up as you go part of the challenges. I feel like they do take it very seriously, but I do think you would love the story of like even when they like Noelle was tied up in the nets, right? And they helped her out. He's like, wow, I can't. I was like, what? Like Jeff? I mean, she's like, the woman has one leg, and everybody like knows her. Like it would be wild if they didn't help her get out of the nets.
Extremely cruel, but yeah, I think you would be hard pressed to find Jeff Probst being like, no, don't help that struggling woman. That's not his vibe, because I think that he would be like, what a story, and then that would be such a narrative element for him. But I don't think they would want Wei to come back and win, which he could. She literally just did the challenge before where she was way behind and then won because it was a puzzle. So she caught up. So I don't think he would be like, oh no, I don't want this to actually affect the outcome, but I do want it as a narrative element. And then I don't want anyone to ever do it again in a way that
Mhm.
can affect the challenge. So that's very interesting to me. That's a good would you rather for Jeff, but only Jeff.
Yeah.
If he would allow that.
But this was really, really a fun moment there. Haley will win immunity at the final 5.
Yes. So and then but Flick has an idol. So George sees the numbers. I've always said this better than anyone. The way he can split a vote is so beautiful, and it's going to lead to, well, kind of a plurality vote. I guess it's 2-1.
Yeah.
But the
Well,
first.
can we go back to, George tells Flick, like, Flick, I'd look for an idol if I were you. And again, George is so fun just as a straight shooter of, hey, like it's going to be you. Go look for an idol. And then it's such a great moment where he looks at her. She's like, she's not looking for an idol.
It's a good read.
It's great. It was such a great moment.
Yeah. And then he's like, we better split this vote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, and I kind of like in terms of the storyline of Way and George, and ending this way, where George doesn't even want to get rid of Way, but she's just his collateral. Like it's almost worse. It's like I don't think about you at all. It'd be almost better if he respected her enough to take her out, but instead it's just like, it was like, self-preservation mode. But did you like this coming full circle? Because yeah, he's gonna split. The whole thing is he goes to Kara and he says, the two of us need to put our votes on Way to split the vote. And then if it's a 2-2-1 and Flick doesn't play her idol, we'll just send her right home. Or she doesn't have an idol. And if she does have an idol, the last time you can play an idol, then I'm not going to get sent home on one vote, which he would have. He sees it beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Kara doesn't think Flick has an idol. And it's been a great runner through the season that Kara is always wrong.
Yeah. But she's with George, who's usually right.
Yeah, Kara, the empath, has had the wrong read at every single turn.
Yeah. I mean, I think Kara just really doesn't want Flick to have the idol because, and she doesn't think it, but she doesn't want it to be true because she doesn't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she doesn't want to turn on Way and upset Haley. And she's not the one who would, go home for that. It would be George.
Yeah. Kara is a trust player and she trusts that it's not going to happen. But George, he knows. Kara, actually, I know she says she's a trust player because she wants to tell Haley and Way.
And she
but
did,
George, by the way. She did. Oh.
Yeah. She told Haley before the tribal, like right before tribal council.
Okay. And what Haley was just like, whatever.
Well, yeah, I think Haley said that she was happy to lose Way anyway. Not happy, but like she wanted to take the shot at Flick. She can't counter split without allowing Flick to get through, even without an idol. And Flick had an idol, then Way went, and then we clearly see it's still a fine pathway for her. She's still physically necessary to George and Kara. I don't know. And she also didn't have a lot of time. So I think she was just like, I'm immune. Someone's going home who's not me. And if Flick doesn't have an idol, it would be her. And if she does have an idol, then it's not going to be my first choice anyway. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but she was told right before tribal council.
Okay. Yeah. So ultimately, Flick is going to stand up and play her idol.
Yeah. I mean, I spoke to Flick about this at the time, and I think she said she was like struggling with stuff. But it is crazy that Flick doesn't tell people about her idol. Like, it's crazy that she doesn't try to use it. It's the last time she can play it. Like, she's definitely going to be safe. You think that she would be cause fractures rather than allowing them to split around me anyway, or
right? Because could she play it at the final 4?
No.
Yeah.
This is it.
So I guess she felt like, okay, well, this is going to be my moment in front of the jury. I'm going to Flick bomb somebody.
That's an interesting idea. It's just really hard.
And she thinks that she's going to Flick bomb George also, where I think if she maybe tells him about the idol, it's like that. Okay, well, now she gives George the opportunity to maneuver and say like, hey,
she could just tell Haley.
Yeah. But for Flick, this was, maybe her one shot to try to get George out.
Yeah, big move. I mean, not that she needs it with the jury.
The jury would have gone nuts.
I kind of think that George would think of a way to play this in a way that makes more strategic sense. But Flick's like, I'll just play it. I'm going to be safe and I'll just like keep marching through. And Haley, who's her biggest physical competitor, is immune anyway. But that's an interesting idea that she, the Flick bomb of it all.
Yeah, Danny, her head would have literally exploded.
Yeah. Yeah. Except
Everybody
that's not what happened.
would have
Flick
gone
continued
nuts.
to vote incorrectly
Mhm.
here the whole week at the final
Mhm.
four. Some unprecedented. Like it only happens in a 2-1-1. And she was
Mhm.
immune. It's
Yeah.
Flick's voting record. And then it goes through to here. That's the origin story in Heroes vs. Villains, where Flick continues to vote incorrectly. Mostly against George. Most of Flick's
Yes.
votes are against George, and George gets voted out once, well after Flick is voted out in Heroes vs. Villains. So
Mhm.
poor Flick. It's just not a great Wikipedia page in terms of the voting records. But in
Yeah.
another world, when she's idling out George, bam,
I'm
like
sure when
crazy.
Flick is reading over her Wikipedia page, I'm sure this is one that really stings.
Yeah, just looking at the voting chart, just like memories.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. Well, all of them. It's very unfortunate. I mean, let's talk about the final four because I think it's worse.
Well,
But
can we just also then Wei had like a lot of stuff towards the end of the game too.
I think they had stuff the whole time. I mean, when you say towards the end of the game, what you're saying is they finally started receiving confessionals. That
Yeah,
was the
that's right.
editor's choice. That was the
That's
editor's
right.
choice. Not to give
Okay.
anyone confessions.
Well, I only have a TV show to work with, Shannon. I don't
Well,
have
you can
like close
infer.
personal relationships with all the players like some people.
Well, not all of them. Most of them have been
All
alive.
24, right.
Yeah, me and Andrew, super tight. No,
Hmm.
I think Wei was great. I'd like to see Wei again. I'd like to see because with more of a fandom, and
Hmm.
I think she could. What do you think? No, yes.
That's fine. She, I felt like that was, a different type of personality than we get on Australian Survivor specifically. Like I feel like a lot of like the female cast and uh, like I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but it's just like, hey, I'm sporty. It's like I feel like that there's a lot of like Liz's, Flicks, like I feel like that's like a big like archetype that we see a lot of in Australian Survivor. And so I think
We
that
have had two
way.
Olympians win, so it's a fair comment, definitely.
Yeah, but I don't mean to single them out, but I just feel like in that mold, I feel like in your average Australian Survivor cast, there's like 5 of them in any Australian Survivor cast. And so Wei, I felt like was somebody who definitely like was like a different archetype to be in the season. So I thought she also brought like a very different perspective in terms of, being so good with the puzzles. She loves words. So I as JLP told us, so
Loves words.
Wei was fun.
Yeah, I think what Wei's casting is indicative of to me is like maybe 3 weeks or whatever before the show. They're looking at the cast and they're thinking, you know what? It's brains versus brawn. Do you think that we should cast a brain on this cast? And then they just like personified that into Wei, who was just like the brainiest brain, whoever brained. She's an author. She's a clear raven puff. And
Hmm.
I think that they were like, we've got our one brain, and then now we're gonna get other fitness models for the brains tribe.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think Wei was amazing, and I'd like definitely to see her again. I feel like Wei is a deep dive I could have done that I didn't do. I feel like if I
Hmm.
if I was going back in time, that might have been because I just did George and Haley. Because it just felt like George and Haley's season. I feel like we got a
Hmm.
lot in those 7.5 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, I think Wei was amazing. And Wei has a book coming out, by the way. I'm sorry that I don't have it. I actually do have it in the other room, but I forgot to bring it into this room. And I wanted to plug it. It's called Last Place Lynn, and it's about that challenge where they ran up the hill a lot.
Hmm.
It's coming out like this week, and it's about how she came last in that challenge. But she
This
like
week?
no spoiler. Yeah, it is. There's gonna be a lot of fight.
Yes. Okay.
But it's about like never giving up and stuff.
All
Which is
right.
exactly the opposite of what George did. So I feel like there were mixed messages through the
Hmm.
season. I don't hate giving up, but I think it's a beautiful story for children. So just wanted to
Yeah.
plug that
I'm
one.
up for a strategic tank here and there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Giving up
All
is
right.
great.
Yeah. So all right. So George's plan B works out. Okay. I liked also at the Final Five Tribal Council that Flick like changed the subject and just was like, in other news. I thought that was a good moment.
What was the other news?
She was trying to reveal that Haley wanted to sit next to George. She was like trying to like drop another Flick bomb. And Haley's like,
I
well,
don't think
Flick
Flick
might have
wanted
an
to
idol.
win.
Yeah.
Well, It's funny that you say that because I said that her nickname might have been Flick Flick Boom in Heroes versus Villains. It
Flick Flick
wasn't,
Boom. Oh, I like
but
that. Yeah.
that's what I said.
Maybe they didn't see that movie.
So
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're down to our penultimate episode. All right. I love George getting the lesson on how to make the fire from Kara.
yeah, but the best part about this is that he does like a accidental backstabbing motion, and then later this episode, literally stabs her in the back.
Oh my
Incredible,
god. But it was so
Shakespearean.
funny where she was
Yeah,
teaching it to him and he's like, it's the blind leading the blind. I'm getting a fire making lesson from someone who doesn't even know what they're doing. How do they not hear him in the confessionals? He's so loud.
I think they do. I think they do.
Well, I guess he always tells the truth, so I guess that this is good. Extra, extra.
Yeah, I know George's
Kara can't
entire
make a
plan because I
fire
can hear
either.
him.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I definitely think they have to be able to hear him.
Hmm. All right. But Flick has a change of plans here. Flick is
Yeah.
taking
So
her. She doesn't want to beat George anymore. Now she wants to beat Haley.
I mean, this makes sense, right?
Yeah.
This is the best move that Flick makes this week.
Yeah. Probably the whole game.
Yeah. Is there a better? She was good in the first week or two.
If you say so, I don't remember. What did she do? What did she do?
She was in the majority, and she was in both alliances, and everyone wanted to work with her. And I think I gave her 3 chili points week 1.
Okay.
So she's a very good pre-swap player.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, but she's like, okay, well, I know I
that's
can
funny
beat
that you
George.
say that because I was like, I wonder how many people from the season Rob remembers. I don't know if I thought it might be a bit too mean to make
You
want
want to see? You want to see? Let me. Can I name how many people from the cast? Can I name? Okay,
Well,
going
yeah,
back. Going back. All right, original Brawn. Okay.
okay.
All right. All right. So let me
okay,
just.
I thought it was mean,
I'm,
but you're willing to do it.
Sure, I'm willing to do it. Can I get what is it? 24 people or 22? It's 24, right? All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So from the original Brawn guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Emmett was there, Simon was there, Gerald was there, Denny. Is that how you wish that? Where's Danny? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then also,
we've done Simon, Emmett, Danny. Yeah.
Yeah, I might be hitting a wall with other Brawn men.
No,
but then there's
no.
Then there's Karen / Kaz. That's only one person.
Okay.
There was Shannon.
Yeah.
There was also Flick.
Yep.
And then Danny.
Mm-hmm.
The other Danny. Ham Sandwich Chelsea.
There was one Danny. Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Great.
And so that's 9. I might be hitting the wall there at this point. Okay. There was the guy. Who's the guy that I said sucks? There was a guy who did suck, and I can't remember what his name was. Let's go to the brain. Let's go to the Brains tribe. I think I could do a little bit better here. Okay, in the Brains tribe, certainly, there was George. There was Baden. There was Andrew the doctor? Mitch was the doctor. Andrew is not the doctor.
No.
Then
so you did George, Baden,
Mitch, Andrew,
yeah.
Yeah. Also, Mitch looks like he could be an Andrew. Yes. I could see that. Okay.
That's 100% true. That's a very good call. It's a very good comment.
Yeah. Okay. Boy, that I remember our first player voted out, and I can't remember their name at this moment. But let me go back. Okay, the women on the Brains. So there's Rachel, there's Laura, and there's Georgia, the trio. Then there is Haley, and Wei. And who else is there from?
You're making me forget, but this one's really obvious. This one, the last brain woman is very obvious.
Oh, Kara?
Yeah.
Okay, and Kara.
So you're
Okay.
missing 3 brawn men and
Three brawn men.
Three
No.
brawn men.
No,
I've
Emmett, Simon, Gerald, and Danny.
Oh, you got Gerald? I missed Gerald. I thought you just forgot Gerald.
Okay.
I literally just thought
no.
Even though he made. So you're missing 2 brawn men. 2 brawn men. See how they run.
Yeah. All right. Tell me who am I missing?
Okay, Phil was the first boot.
Phil.
And Joey.
Oh yes, Joey.
And then you were missing. Oh, and then you're also missing.
I'm missing two brawn. Yeah, 2 brawn men and 1 brawn woman.
Yeah, you're missing Janelle.
Yeah, and she Gavin was like the mom.
Yeah, Janelle. You're like, Janelle. Gavin Wanganine?
There was a Gavin.
He's on Dancing with the Stars for real. That's what that Joel joke was built from.
Let me look at him. Gavin was on this season.
This is like our own little fallen comrades, but more fun.
Gavin, what's his last name?
Wanganine.
Wanganine. Okay. Oh, he was the guy that voted wrong against okay, yes.
And then also Benny. How could you forget
Benny.
Australian Survivor's first Jew?
I didn't forget him. I did say he sucks, which now is seeming like anti-Semitic, but
no, it's not at all. It's fine. I speak for all Jews. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, most of my podcasting friends, really.
It's crazy. You're keeping the whole Jewish community employed. Like we owe a debt of gratitude. So yeah.
No, okay. All right. So
well, you did it right. I don't even know how we got this tangent. But you named many of the people that played on the season we are currently watching.
Yeah. And most of the people I forgot were like from the first and second week.
Yeah. All of them. So, Odd and Joey, third week.
Yes. So
that was probably the biggest miss.
Yeah. I mean, I did pretty good. I mean,
I'm obsessed with how much you every single person on this cast.
How much
like, what about this person returning? That's fine.
I mean, I don't have super strong feelings about the people that I do want to return. I think I will state it, but you never know. I mean, look at where we had from. I'm trying to think of who is it? If you want loyalty, get a dog. Stevie. See, I mean, nobody knew Stevie would be fun on return.
Yeah, you're right. Everyone has potential, but also everyone maybe doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes these people that it's like you're not that excited to see them return, they come back and they actually like bring something the second time around because they're sort of like, okay, nobody cared about me the first time. I'm about to prove something.
Yeah, but why did we do this tangent? Why did we do the Fallen Comrades quiz with you?
I don't know. It was fun. It's a fun idea.
It was a fun game, yeah. But what were we talking about?
Just no.
I'm just trying to go back in my head.
Yeah. What was Flick's best move? What was Flick's best move? Did she make good moves in the beginning of the game?
At the beginning of the game. Okay. Yes. Okay. Amazing. And also, we missed our 20-minute check-in of how this is going.
Oh, better than even earlier.
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
I'm so happy. Yes. Okay. So incredible for Flick to finally switch to voting out Haley, who's her biggest physical competitor. And actually, if Haley goes home, Flick wins the whole game, right? So she has to do this. She has to vote out Haley, but she has to vote her out successfully. I think that's what we're going to hit a bit of a tipping point with that.
Yep. And ultimately, we're going to be able to get Flick to win immunity. So everything is coming up Flick.
It's a good time for Flick. Yeah. Assuming she could vote correctly. So, Rob, 2-1-1. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about my favorite vote in Survivor. My favorite type of vote. And this is my favorite 2-1-1. This is one of my favorite rounds in global Survivor history. I'll say that.
Yeah.
It's so fun. There's so much gameplay and logic. And it just makes sense. Like you would think, Cara and George are aligned. Flick's immune. Haley has to go. But they have better plans because of this like beautiful final 2 structure that's so difficult to navigate. And I just love it so much.
Yeah, this was really, really fun because ultimately we come back around to George and Kara like having to ultimately write each other's names down that they had been together the whole way through, and that now they are looking to for either of them to win, they have to turn on each other.
Yeah. Yes. And I was lower on this for Kara in 2021 because I was like, eh, she's drawing dead, and now like, was she? I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted because in many ways she, like George, makes the right move by ensuring that Flick like won't definitely win the next challenge and hence the game. But like, doesn't Kara really need George to win? But then I guess you could say the same about George needing Kara.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean for Kara, like I think you could certainly argue that okay, maybe if her win condition is I need to sit next to George, then voting out George at this particular tribal council is probably the wrong move for her. I guess
but
that
is there
she
any world where she could sit next to George? Because then one of them needs to win a challenge against Flick or Haley or both. Well, definitely Flick because she's on immunity. So it's never. It's
But they don't know what the challenge is. I mean, George goes 4.5 hours. I mean, it's like it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world if like Flick like cramped up in the challenge or whatever, and like ultimately, you don't know what the final three challenge will be for sure. I
well,
mean,
it's
George is
something endurance
yeah, but
and
George is
torturous. So
I mean,
that's fine.
George went for how many hours? Like he's a
Four
tough
and a half. Yeah.
SOB. And so I think that, it wouldn't have been crazy. But maybe if she's thinking that Haley would rather sit next to Kara, I guess in Kara's mind, does she have a chance to beat Haley?
Well, she'd be thinking the same as George, which is like, well, the logic that I had for George, which I think you can kind of ascribe to Kara in ways that I felt like Kara was drawing dead. Haley was saying like it would be your move and things that I felt were not true, and I didn't know how much Kara was going with. But if you ascribe the same logic to George and Kara, the logic is, do you want the two of you to go against Flick in the challenge and then have a good shot against each other? I mean, one of them has to win, so I guess it's who you're talking to or what that shot is. But have the best shot against each other, or do you want like not a guaranteed final two, but a really strong shot with Haley, and then your arena becomes face off against Haley in the final two? Where do you want this battle to be had? Do you want to outlast in a challenge, or do you want to out talk in a tribal council? And for George, he's shown how he feels about
Hmm.
challenges and how he
Hmm.
feels about talking. So he chose talking. A man
Yeah.
after my own heart.
Yeah. So I can't, ascribe too much blame for Kara here to go through this. I thought everybody did a good job.
Yeah, it was kind of logical.
Hmm.
Like for
And
Flick, she does Haley. That's right.
and the best job for Haley.
Yeah, I mean, and Haley's the one who delivers all that logic in a way that George, I'm sure, is already thinking about, but gives
Yes.
him, that information in a way that he's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, how can I not? you know?
My favorite part of all this was they go to the tribal council and Haley is like making the case of what needs to happen. And George says, well, first off, like Haley, I think, did much better with her pitch today than she did the last time she had to make a pitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Carr's like, no, I thought Haley made a great pitch today.
Both of
But
that. Classic George and Kara. Classic
yeah,
Georgia.
that I thought that was so funny. For going back to when George and Haley really got into it. So that they asked George and Kara, like, are you keeping your promise to the final two? And they both said yes, yes, I were
Yeah.
sticking to our promise.
Because tribal council is pointless,
Hmm.
as we've long discussed.
Yeah,
Because what are
maybe
they
it's like
going to say?
sticking to my promise to not take you to the final two.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I did the
Cassandra.
backstabbing thing so recently, you
Yep.
know?
And
So,
then we see the votes that Flick is voting for Haley, and then Haley is voting for Kara. And so ultimately we get that I think at the point that they show us the vote for Kara, I feel like it's like this Kara's definitely out, right?
I don't know.
Because
No, not in a 2-1-1 because everyone's vote is so important. Never more important than a 2-1-1. Because if
mhm,
George votes for Kara, well, if George votes for Haley, or if any of them vote for
mhm,
Haley,
yeah,
then yeah, yeah, at that point when we've seen her, so she's voted for Kara, so we would need George to vote for Haley, and Cara to either vote for George or Haley, and Haley could
We know
flip over.
George isn't going to vote for Haley. I guess the question would be if Cara would vote for Haley, but
yeah, you're right. That is a weird way to put that. But
yeah.
so this is the question. There's so many things in this. The first one being, explain to me your feelings as you watched the beauty of the 2-1-1, where it's like one vote George in some order, I don't remember. One vote Haley, one vote Cara, one vote left, and all three of them can go home. It's so beautiful. How did you feel?
Yes. Well, I guess not as excited as you.
What?
But
Why?
I guess I didn't really, I wasn't realizing exactly what I was witnessing until it was over.
So beautiful. Rob, I did a plurality vote podcast and I did a whole section on 2-1-1 votes.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a final full vote in US Survivor. We have these beautiful 2-1-1 votes. So amazing. The second part of this
But
is
imagine you could have watched somebody make fire like really fast.
Imagine if I could have watched them. No. Imagine 3 people have 1 vote and 1 vote is going to send one of the 3, all the vulnerable people. 1 vote's going to decide it. It's like, it's such pure strategy in such a beautiful way. It just makes my heart happy. Anyway, so that was that.
I love that for you.
Yeah, thank you. And you might, and also you feel it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool.
You just add me. You just do what you did with everyone on the season that's not George and Haley.
Mm-hmm.
To the 2-1-1, is nothing sacred.
It's definitely better than the Final Four fire making. I mean, I probably won't think about it again the rest of the day.
No, you're experiencing this wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to experience it differently. I want you to think about how all 3 of them had. Anyway, how one person is one person can say sending themselves home. Think about that. How if Cara votes for Haley, she goes to fire. Then she can maybe make a fire.
Mm-hmm.
So her 1 vote sends herself home on a 2-1-1, possibly, right?
Yeah.
Although we're saying there's logic to, to keeping Haley around. But that's so fun and interesting as well, because Cara's 1 vote sent Danny home, sent Laura home, and now sent herself home. Full circle, beautiful moment. But the other part of this is that Haley wanted Cara to come with her, not George, I think. But she didn't trust, as she said in her voting confessional, that Cara would vote with her.
Mm-hmm.
But she trusted that George would. So to not put herself at risk, she kept George in the game and voted for Cara. And then Cara decided in the voting booth what she was doing. So it was a good bet because it could have gone either way.
Yeah. I mean, for Flick, ultimately, she does have the presence of mind to know that Haley is standing in between her and the win. Haley is going to win the final 3 immunity challenge. So for Flick, her instincts are right to try to sure, it could have been, she could have gotten George out there at that point, but she still is going to go on to lose the game.
Yeah, but also because she can't get them over the line with a pitch. And to be fair, the pitch is clear to at least, George and also Cara. So it's become for Flick, it's so obvious that she would win at the end. I think that it becomes quite difficult. Yeah. So, but it was interesting. Cara even tells Haley that Flick's coming for her. And that's what sets off Haley's extreme pitching, because otherwise she was happy to just kind of hope everyone just piles on George.
Mm-hmm.
And instead she has to start playing everyone against each other. But yeah, so many different incentives. Rob, you've never seen this before. You saw this for the first time ever. You've never seen a 2-1-1 vote.
I've never seen a 2-1-1 vote. Yeah.
You've never seen it. It's the first time ever that you saw it.
Not even in the pre-merge in Survivor 41 or anything like that?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're thinking of 1-1 votes or other votes, but not. So that's, and we only can do it in the pre-merge now of the new era. But be more excited.
Wow.
Okay, whatever. It's fine. Don't pretend for me.
Yeah, maybe because I knew what was going to happen.
You didn't know what was going to happen. Did you know?
I did.
You knew it was going to be a 2-1-1.
I didn't know it was going to be a 2-1-1, but I know that Flick is immune and George and Haley are the final 2. So it was a little bit that I think I had I was way more shocked when Haley got voted out of the game.
But even more space to think about the 2-1-1 because you know who's going home. Whatever. It's fine. Mm-hmm. I'll send you a link to my plurality vote podcast. That's why I talked about this for much longer. But
I'm sure I listened to it in the real time with Taryn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't remember it, right?
I don't remember specific too many specific moments.
That's fine. It's
Yeah.
all fine, Rob. It's fine.
Yes. All right.
It's
Let's talk about the finale.
There are other
And
people who are excited about it. It's all good.
and I love that for everybody.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
that was it. That's my
Yeah.
favorite vote in the whole season, by the way. That's my favorite episode in the whole season.
It's a great week. It's a great week. So all right, the finale, we get everybody's backstory of how they got to this point. And so it's going to be, George versus Flick versus Haley, and our loved ones are here.
Yeah. And that is future Amazing Race player Pamela Mladenov.
Yes. Well,
Everyone
that
in
was
George's family's on TV.
Yeah. Look, he did it for them.
Proximity to George. Yeah. That's George's mom, the one who does his laundry. How do you feel about seeing the family?
This was very exciting. He also stirs tomatoes for his mom. Look at him.
That's sweet. I feel like you'd be less about like, what do you think about Pamela being on The Amazing Race? It's like, that's great. Got some George DNA. Do you know that George is a twin?
No.
He is.
His sister is who he's...
No, he has a twin brother.
Is it an identical twin or a fraternal twin? Okay.
Not an identical twin.
Just like, I was so excited that there was a second George.
I think George's brother is very different to him.
Yeah.
But he is his twin. Can you imagine being George's twin brother?
That would be a lot.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but George's twin isn't there. It's George's mom and his sister. And Haley's boyfriend at the time, now husband and best friend. And because
you made me think they broke up for a second.
No, they got married better and having a baby.
I was like, I know she just got married. Did she meet somebody else really quick?
No, that's Jimmy. And then Flick's now husband also and best friend. Everyone got married. All the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Very presumptive that, her husband isn't her best friend, Shannon.
She said her husband and her best friend.
Okay. Let's talk about this challenge because this is wild.
Yes.
This was a crazy
I want your
challenge.
opinion. Let me know.
I don't know. So I guess what I had thought originally was that they are in this position and they are propping up the ceiling, which is dropping on them.
That would be insane.
Right.
What? They would be dead.
That is not the case. They're just like the ceiling has been lowered and they have to punch into an uncomfortable position. I think I do have some questions about overall fairness of something like this. Like if Gerald was in the final three, if somebody who is very tall, I do wonder if they would have made any considerations for how tall, what is the height of this person. And so I think that it was cool to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it was a torture chamber.
Nobody does the final endurance challenge. Well, I guess certainly not US Survivor. And this beats the hell out of Samotion.
Yes. Why?
And that's the most exciting one. Tortured? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Torture. I am this isn't real torture.
They seem pretty in pain to me. They were suffering.
Sure, but they could get out at any point,
Why do you think US Survivor hasn't thought to do this?
They used to.
Yeah, you're right. We took it from them. We took it from them with Ian and Tom.
Yeah, I mean,
who wanted more? You're right. Hold on. I'm why is it?
Yeah, Survivor was all about the endurance challenge.
Yeah,
in all these different seasons for quite some time. Although I would argue that I don't know what the hell they were thinking in my season. But that it was like a test of wills, and I was excited to go into that. I felt like that. I thought I would be okay in some sort of a test of wills. But that being said, they change it up. I'm trying to think of what point exactly we get the different type of challenge, but I feel like sort of in the teens we're changing things up. So I think that maybe after Guatemala, I feel like that with with Danny and Steph in the hanging from the rope. I'm trying to think of in Panama. What was the it was like a race, and then it was like all sorts of different like stacking teacups, and we have all sorts of put your idol as high as you can in the air and stacking things. So we
Yeah.
really got away from the endurance competitions. Really, once Survivor got into the teens.
Well, I hate myself for saying why has the US not thought to do this when they originated it. But it's also very true of something that I feel is true of US Survivor. It's like, why don't we tell US Survivor to do the stuff that Australian Survivor's doing? And all of that is just stuff that US Survivor originated that we stole and then made more extreme. It's like, tell them to do it. We got it from them. We're the little brother. And we're just doing it still and more.
Yeah. American Survivor, you changed.
I mean, they genuinely
I don't even
did.
know who you are anymore.
The torture chambers, like in Thailand, like, yeah, we were just building on what US Survivor was doing decades ago. So
yeah,
and that worked. And if it ain't broke,
it would be great. For whatever reason, US Survivor does not like doing long challenges. I don't know if it's a production issue or what, but they just, do not want to spend all that, time and resources on like a day of filming of a long challenge. They want the challenges to be short.
Yeah, well, it's like in Australian Survivor, it's like a whole thing of like, how long can you go in the final challenge? It's definitely going to get dark. Can we do, up to 6 hours? And that's like a big part of it. And I think that really adds to it. And I think it's like a staple of the show that's very good. And it was way better when 3 people were doing it instead of 4, but this is where we're at.
Yeah. Okay. So
you enjoyed the final challenge?
I did,
other than
very
George
much so.
losing?
And yeah, the loved ones have to watch come on out to Australia and watch your emaciated loved ones get tortured. It'll be fun. And so they bring everybody out, and it was just really, really great. George puts up a hell of a show. He has the line that is like, I think I've got to go. And then he steps down.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I said 2 years ago that my endurance challenge would be... So I said 2 years ago that my endurance challenge would be watching my loved one do this. Just sitting on that bench, watching them. And Nick and Mike shamed me. Do you agree? Like, if Nicole was up there for 6 hours, 5 and something hours, and you had to watch her, don't you think that would be really difficult?
Like boring?
Yeah. And the bench doesn't look very comfortable to me.
Yeah, and you don't even have a phone to look at.
I think I would take my phone.
I don't think you'd be allowed to look at your phone.
I'd have to take a book. I'd have to take something. I'm just going to sit there for 5.5 hours watching them stand there. It's so boring.
Yeah, do they have snacks for the loved ones or anything?
That's torturous. So you, particularly, so you want them to stand up there being tortured and their loved ones are eating in front of them.
I mean, can I have a drink?
I think yes, but I think that there should be a whole movie theater experience. You give me the seats that recline.
I do think that you would be in an altered state of you would miss your loved one if you hadn't seen them in 48 days. And so I don't think you would get bored watching them do the endurance challenge. You would be talking to them. I think you'd be catching up and talking about stuff that happened.
They're not talking to you. They're being tortured. So you're just talking to the other loved ones. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. What, I'm just not talking to George's mom for 6 hours?
I bet it's fun. You hear some good stories. Like, what was George like as a kid?
I think for me personally, I would need some sort of entertainment. Or maybe they just could bring me in at different intervals just to react. And then I could just go back to my trailer.
I never thought about this.
I stand by this take. I stand by it for 2 years. I don't take it back. And no one has been on board with it, but it definitely is true. Think about the loved ones. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the challenge. Yeah.
Well, Shannon, when you and Peter one day are going to take these kids to go to sports and stuff like that, and then your kids are in the field and they say, "Dad, I saw you were on your phone during the game today." It's like, well, look, I have a lot to do. I'm doing stuff. I'm multitasking here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's get it up to a level where I want to invest all my attention in it. All right. That's not on me.
Yeah.
But we agree.
All right.
We agree.
Yeah. It can be boring. All right.
It can be really boring.
So let's then we go right to tribal council.
Yeah, because it's really late.
Took
Took over 5 hours, so.
Yep, and ultimately, Flick is gonna get the flick.
Finally. They've been saying that for so
Mhm.
long. Also,
Mhm.
drink every time Flick says minority of one this week. You'd be dead.
Mhm.
I don't know
You be
why
that.
they play
Oh,
that line so many times.
yes, and my other favorite expression that comes up all the time from this season, I think this is, officially a Kara thing, "From day dot, Shannon."
Yeah, do you not have that?
No.
Oh, I'm gonna Google it.
What is day dot?
Like day 0 from the
Well, what's the
beginning.
origin of that? Why is it dot, not
Um,
0?
okay, well, I don't know everything about the saying. Just let
Mhm.
me Google it. Day dot slang Australian. It's only Australian. I didn't know that, I don't think. A very long
Yeah,
time ago, as far back as one can remember.
yeah, okay.
I didn't know that. So we learned that together. Well, you learned
Mhm.
that day dot, and I learned that it was Australian.
Yeah, as far
Okay.
back as somebody can remember, why is it dot?
Maybe it's like, you can't see it. It's so far away, it's like a dot to you.
Mhm, yeah, I guess so.
It's like a little
But she's like,
blurry dot.
"George and I have been together from day dot."
Yeah, which is a very normal thing to say in
She
Australia.
says every episode.
Does she?
Almost. I'd say
Really?
she
She didn't
says it
speak in
like
every episode.
7 times in the show.
No, I was just hearing minority of one. I think the only criticism of this week that I have is like every episode starts with everyone left in the game saying the
A
same thing too about their journey.
montage.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
a
yes,
lot,
yes. It's a
a lot of
lot.
that.
It's a lot. We
Yeah,
do that a lot.
flipping
Okay.
3 times that. But yeah,
Um,
yeah,
all right. And then we get to the final tribal council.
yeah, which we've spoken about. I think
Yeah,
George says you don't need to like me to vote for me, and as we're saying, that seems
you
like that's not
do.
true. Yeah, you
You
probably
do.
should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the way that George broke things out to like the first third of the game and then the second third of the game. And then he got into the third phase of my game is dynasty. It's like, I don't know if this is what the jury wants to hear. He's like, the only thing I'm missing is my crown. Like, again, it's just like, I think this is not the right tone to take with the jury. Like, I think I do think you want to be a little bit more humble with the jury.
George?
I think generally that's the right, confident but humble. I did what I needed to do to beat you. You all were incredible players. I had to do this. But that's why George is so different and great, and I love him for that because I feel like that there's so many players that are similar to other players. I mean, we've watched literally hundreds of players play this game and
Thousands,
perhaps
probably.
over a
Thousands,
thousand
guys. Yeah.
between all of the like international
Yeah.
versions and even Haley, as great as she is, I think there are players you can squint and say, well, we have other people that are, similar to a Haley, but there's only one George.
That is true. That is true. And I think, you know what? The speech was great. I mean, how many people say dynasty in their speech? I think why it didn't hit as hard is probably because they heard him practicing it super loudly in the confessional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, we've heard you talk about do this for 3 weeks. And he's just like in the confessional, miles away, kilometers away, being like, dynasty. So maybe they just, they could hear it from Ponderosa, from Tree Villa. So I just don't think that it was hitting as hard.
Yeah. So that was just like a really, really wild.
Yeah. And also the first phase, controlled chaos. That's
Mhm.
not how I remember it. It wasn't that controlled. It was chaotic. It was
Yeah.
it was it was it was one part of that. I don't know how
Yeah.
controlled it was, but let's not talk about that. Also, Haley yada yada is getting voted out too. So let's all yada yada all the mistakes
Yes,
that were
she
made in 2
did. She
otherwise
did.
excellent
Look,
games. Yeah.
she said that, and I thought she handled it perfectly. That she said that luckily, and look, that nobody can play a perfect game. It's a hard game.
I think she should have been like in this season where everyone got voted out and came back. I want to
Not
represent
George.
you, except George. Let's not talk about
Mm-hmm.
that. George
Mm-hmm.
almost went a couple of times
I
in
mean,
the
he had that
controlled
idol
chaos
played on
phase.
him. Yeah.
The controlled chaos phase, if that's what it was, if it was that controlled, he took it very, very far to
It was
pretty
very
much being
controlled.
gone
It was very
many, many
controlled.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a fine art.
Yeah.
They would say.
What do
Yeah.
you think about the questioning from the jury?
Yeah, I mean, like I felt like I in 2021 was a bit neutral on Final Tribal Council, but I think there was a lot going on. They came in
Yeah.
a bit heated. Kara stumps for George by being like, Haley, why are you the worst? Did that just happen
Yeah, that was.
organically, or were you
Yeah,
did
does
it
lying
form?
just come naturally to you? But I liked what
Yeah.
Flick said
Are
about
you
how that she look.
detestable?
Yeah, she's like, hey, in my job, I have to, give people placebos, and I didn't really think about like doctors and researchers so much as like big liars, but I guess they kind of are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one professionally, but I think she's
I
also
think,
leaning into the theme
I,
a
I
little
guess
bit.
if I was maybe in the study, I don't know if they tell people like, hey, you're getting like, do they tell you up front if you're in a study? Like some people are getting a placebo, um, or does
Right.
that sort of like
Or
take you
they're there
out of
for
it?
genuine care. Like,
Yeah.
do
Oh,
they
I
know
don't
they're in
think
the
they
study?
give a placebo to people like
Okay.
that are there for genuine
I
care.
mean, they need
I don't
care. They're
think.
experiencing pain.
I
Anyway,
guess so.
the important thing is that the last thing we heard from Haley is how she manipulates patients
Imagine
and
you showed
then
up for the like, all right, here, like
yeah.
Shannon, we're here to treat your pain. Like, oh, thank God. And then you found out, like, oh yeah, you've been getting the placebo for the last 4 months.
Yeah, you'd probably be as mad as
I am
Andrew is at
so mad.
everything.
I
Yeah.
came here. You wasted my time. I drove here every day.
Yeah. But
I
she was
had
a
other things
hero.
to do. Right.
Did you think Haley should have been a hero watching this game, by the way? Do you agree with
um,
the designation?
don't think I would have had an issue with her
It could have
being
gone either
Brand.
way.
Yeah, it could have gone either
There's
way.
footage either way. Yeah, but so in terms of the questioning, how did you feel about Danny bringing? Was it Danny who brought up the challenge performances with George? How he gave up?
Yeah, she did bring it up initially, yeah.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Um look, that's the prerogative of this jury that they were very much like focused in on. And I think that it was probably a failure on George not to have a better answer for that.
Well, George didn't want to go on the Spar Award. Everyone needs to get
Mhm.
over it. Like
Mhm. Yeah.
George should have been like,
I
you know what? Did he talk about like he was in the chat in the torture chamber for 4.5 hours, and they're literally there
It
questioning his
didn't come
will?
up. If maybe it was
Well,
in the final tribal
did.
council,
He
but
probably
yeah, I'm sure he talked
did.
about it.
Like, are you
But also,
joking?
yeah, Danny came in a little hot for Haley also and was like, "So Haley, what was with trying to tell us that you were in on the plan? Were you just messing with us?"
I know Haley has had to explain Survivor to Danny just far too many times.
Mhm.
Like after the Simon vote, what were you trying to do? I was just trying to split. So in case an idol was played, like so, and now as well. Why were you doing that? All right, well, okay. So what happened was in 2000, they decided they could blindside people. Let me explain a blindside to you. Like, let me explain why we do this. Why did you have to lie to me? What, Danny? Please, it's called Survivor.
D-Max, come on. We had a Gerald sighting at the final tribal council.
Barely.
Yes. And he asked a question about like, so George, if you had to do this over again, like who would work with you? And this is like a, another instance of George maybe not having the best read on this jury. He's like, I would say none of you should work with me.
You idiots.
I got to the end. This is my crowning achievement.
You know what I would say? Everyone. I saved allies.
Yeah,
Saved
because like
Wave
George,
and helped her
but
across a beam.
which is
Wave, vote for
also
me. You're
true
dead.
that almost
Yeah.
that George. We've how many times have we seen George work with his enemies before? So it's like George is like, look, I'm like one to never let like I let bygones be bygones. If somebody wants to work with me and it makes strategic sense, like if we had our differences, let's go.
Yeah, I can get over things and I help people. I've given my idol to Kara. I've
Which he's
helped Way. I
literally
got
said at
worked
other
with Haley.
points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was all a
So.
little bit about the messaging. That question was a little silly. Like Gerald loved
Mhm.
that question. He voted for Haley and he said, we would all work with you. It was like that was what he put his vote down to.
Yeah.
That was
And
what he
then.
explained the complexities of his guiding
Mhm.
light. Come on, Gerald.
And then probably the person that we spend the most time with in the jury is Emmett. And Emmett's question about
Emmett's
how,
mad.
what would you do differently?
Yeah. And George
Yeah.
is like,
Would you play the same?
nothing.
Yeah. He's like, you burned bridges. Would you do it all the same? He's like,
George is like, resounding,
yes,
yes. Yes.
because
So I'm
I
sitting
got
there, yeah,
here.
and you're not, you idiot. Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like,
Yeah.
I have the best resume.
I think at a point, see, this is what I'm saying. Consistent messaging, definitely stay on brand. But you need to think, what does Asturo want from me? What does Emmett want? Does he want me to
Right.
say no? Definitely not. So let's think about what Emmett wants. He's still not gonna vote for you. Ever.
Eh,
But what does he
right.
want?
Because I mean, I think this is an exercise of like, it doesn't matter if you actually had the best game or have the best resume. It only matters like what these 9 people think.
It's also
Right.
an exercise in you don't have to be sorry or feel bad in any capacity to just say that you do and then take it back into 1 hour when this is all over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ha
I would be like,
ha.
yeah, Emmett,
You fool.
yeah, I'm really sorry, And then an hour later, I'd be like, I'm not sorry. Woohoo! Dynasty.
Yeah.
And that would be satisfying, I feel.
But we've seen George like struggle at times with just admitting like not necessarily defeat, but like to like save face. And he sometimes like will tie himself up in knots, like going back to that conversation where Haley was calling him out. Did he or did he not say that Kez had the idol, and he's like, I am a loyal ally. Like I'm always like, okay, but did you do that? Like my loyalty should not be questioned.
Yeah. Yeah. The point is, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. Just tell them what they want to
Mm-hmm.
hear and move on. Like, let's soften a little bit.
Yeah.
But it has to still be consistent to the branding. You can't be like, I regret everything. Everything was wrong. But you can say
Yeah.
some version
Right.
of sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. How about this Laura? Laura votes for George. I knew I loved Laura.
Yeah, George feels the same. George is like George said to me once, he's like, who would be a great returning for my first season?
Laura.
Laura. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, George. 100%.
She
I
had
can't imagine
she
why you
had
think
some
that.
moments. And then really when she got to the jury, everybody's like, oh, Laura.
That was shocking to me that Laura voted for
Mhm.
George. Think about their relationship.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy that happened.
Although did Laura, I guess she was with Haley in the beginning of the game. Did she feel like some type of way about Haley flipping on Joey?
Yeah, I mean, Haley and George combined then save her with an idol at the merge. Haley's
Mm-hmm.
idol.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she did flip on Joey, and she wasn't in that like bonding post swap Brawn tribe with
Mm-hmm.
Haley. Maybe she wasn't that close to Haley. But
Yeah.
Haley kind
I
of
don't
ratted
know.
out everything.
Like her last memory of Haley was that Haley flipped on Joey and then she got swapped. And Haley got swapped away.
Yeah.
And so
And they played a
for
whole few rounds together, but still.
mhm. Yeah.
It's
So
just that it's just
I don't
because
know.
George's idol alone sends Laura home. But she
Yeah.
wasn't bitter at all. You gotta love that vote from Laura. It's so
I
shocking
loved it.
and well earned. Well earned from George.
Yeah. And then ultimately, we saw 2 votes in the voting booth for Georgia. Like, okay, I think this is gonna be it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I thought Baden could go either way. That was an interesting one. Because he was so close to both
no,
of
he
them.
loved Haley.
He loved George. He loved them both.
I don't know. That wasn't in the show for me.
It was in the show. You're forgetting.
I guess so.
They took out Baden because of how close he was to Kara and George.
If you say so, I don't recall that part of the show.
Why do you think Baden got voted out?
I'm not. Look, I don't know. I thought because he was close with Haley. I thought.
No, Rob.
Okay. All right, then maybe I missed
This was
it.
but 3 weeks
Okay.
ago.
All right. All right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I literally
I'm
don't
not
remember
wrong.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I can
I
assure
would
you I'm
never
not wrong.
imply that you were.
I'm not.
But
It's
that
not
being
even a
said,
question. Yeah.
right. I
Why would
have
you even bring that up?
I just don't have any recollection that was a thing that happened. Okay.
Well, that's a you thing.
Yes. All right. Emmett says Haley is a winner that ticks all the boxes. And I mean, I think that's really the story of Haley.
That is true. She's very well rounded.
She also, I thought, did a really great job of like really talking about for her, like she found that there was always more power in being in the middle. And I think that's really like the name of her
That's what
game.
you've been saying the whole time.
I love that. I love that. I think she's the best middle player. Not to say she's a mid player or she's a middling player, but she plays the middle, the middle. She plays the middle better than anybody else ever has. And then on top of that, she also has the ability to, win endurance comps, and has a pretty good social game as well. So really, there's very few flaws in her game.
I agree. I mean, it's because she's a social chameleon that she can connect with different types of people and then be in a position where many want to work with her. Where George
Mhm.
can be like, this is someone that I can strategically play with, or Emmett can be like, this is a strong person for my strong person alliance. She ticks in ticking a lot of boxes. She covers a lot of areas for people who want to work with her. So
Yeah.
that was it. That was Haley's winning game.
And she's able to, as you said, a social chameleon. She's like not going to be like the tall poppy ever, where George, it's always like there's so much attention on him and he seeks it out. And, he's so much fun to watch. But Haley can like make herself small and is not going to be the center of attention in the tribe. And like, if and when she ever is, that means that something has gone wrong.
Yeah, well, she becomes a tall poppy as the only winner in a season of non-winners otherwise. And even then
Mhm.
she gets a ton of mileage out of being like such a phenomenal winner. And so does George,
Yeah.
to be fair. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So,
I think
yeah.
you need to rewatch Heroes versus Villains. Seeing this all now. Knowing
That's
what
a
it
big
means.
commitment. That is a big commitment to go back and watch another Australian Survivor season. I've done 2 this year.
Yeah, and you'll do the same one. Not even a new
Mhm.
one, just the same
Mhm.
Heroes versus
But
just
I
these two on
forget
repeat forever.
the beauty is, Shannon, I forget so much. And
Too.
people have said this about the evolution of strategy, where it's like there's like Rob like has like like learned and forgotten the same thing like multiple
I feel the
times,
same
and then
way.
talks about like, oh, this is incredible what this is. And it's like, yeah, you already figured, like, got excited that you found this once.
So, can I tell you the couple of examples of me re-experiencing this season in that way?
Hmm.
So, the first one, 2 years ago, I worked out that the chance of the save score being in the fourth urn was 25%, right?
Hmm.
And by the way, Wade told me that it was never going to be at 3 tribal councils. So I don't know what the plan was or if it was rigged. But anyway,
Hmm.
25%. Apparently, talked about it with my brother on WhatsApp, found that conversation, did the work. 2023 me is like, no, wait, that can't be right. Redoes it, wrong, says last week it was 4%, but it was actually 25%. So now I have to correct myself back. What I'm learning is I always doubt myself, but I shouldn't doubt 2021 me because that person was putting in a lot of effort into covering the show, more than 2023 me. So not only am I relearning things, I'm going back and correcting myself on stuff that was right, then I have to recorrect myself now. But yeah, the amount of stuff that I'm learning that I
Yeah.
thought, like listening to a podcast where I'm like, I don't think that. I'm like, but passionately, I think the opposite now. Am I
Yes.
inconsistent? Like,
So
what's
no,
going
I,
on?
I don't know. So I think that you would like to think like we get smarter, but it's also possible that we're getting dumber, and that like the stuff that we said in the past actually was right, and that
Well, in
our
that case, it was.
brains have been melted over the last couple of years, and that we are actually much sharper a couple of years ago
Possibly no one should talk this much
about
about
certain
Survivor.
issues. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's gotten us to the point where we've, tied ourselves into knots and now we're going in different directions. Although, to be fair, a lot of the time I'm agreeing with current me more. Like
Yeah.
2021 me who thought that helping in challenges wasn't so good. 2023 me has evolved from that. I didn't like medical immunity. I've evolved. Maybe I'm just learning and growing. Maybe it's okay to
We
not
all
be the
are.
final version of ourselves at all times. Maybe that was the point of the rewatch all along.
Perhaps.
If not, what was the point?
So we had fun. We got together every week.
It was the
8
off
weeks.
season. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect timing. Big Brother's come around the corner.
It was convenient. You
Hmm.
wanted to see the origin story. So you think it was about that and it wasn't about learning about how we're always evolving and changing and growth is good?
Do you feel like that's what we did here? Did we evolve?
I mean, you can remember 19 of 24 of the players, so we did something.
Hmm. Yeah, we
We
did do
did.
something.
And
Yeah.
finally, after 8 weeks, I wrote something down and I've been holding this pen every podcast. I wrote down all the players in
Yeah.
the game we
And I
played.
got the nickname Robbo.
Yes, that you're gonna use.
Mm-hmm.
What else
Mm-hmm.
did we do?
Do you do Chizzy points for the final week?
Oh yes. See,
Yeah.
we're evolving all the time to even maybe forget that. Yes, but I did because I did it. Well, you're gonna give the final week, but I had 2 weeks worth of Chizzy points
Ah, okay.
because it's
Yes. All
hard. I
right.
think it's yeah.
Is it hard?
What are you?
I mean, I think I have to give 3 to Haley because she won the game.
Yeah,
That was really good. Okay.
I'm
I'll
supposed
give
to
2
win.
to George because the final 5, the way vote was really incredible. And he gave a look, George did a lot. So I love George. And then I'll give 1 to Flick.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
What did Flick do?
No, I don't know. She got to the
She
final
voted
3.
correctly one time.
She got to the final 3.
She
Who were
won
you
a she
giving?
won a challenge, and well,
I
I
mean,
gave
do you
to
want to give
George.
one Chizzy point to Way or to Kara?
I don't know, maybe Kara for the final 4 that I'm now higher on than I was.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she did not, she voted herself out. Yeah, I couldn't. I have to be Flick.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
at least
because
Flick recognized I need to get Haley out.
yeah, so in week 8, which was just the first 2 episodes, I gave George and Haley. Jackie gave George and Haley. Then I gave Way as a default point because I thought I couldn't give to Flick.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't give to Kara. So maybe I'd give it to Way. And Jackie gave to Flick. And then in the last week, Mike gave Haley, George, Flick. Nick gave Haley, George, Flick. And I gave to just a bunch of different people because I didn't give points because I auctioned my points off for charity. So I gave to Flick and then to Phil and then to Santini, who was a player from Survivor South Africa. It actually really throws off all the data.
What do you mean you auctioned your points off to charity?
I auctioned my points off. Well, I did a raffle. That's actually one of my favorite things I've done. I should do it again.
And then the winner of the raffle got to give your points?
Yes, the winner of the raffle gave the finale week Chizzy points. And it was very close, by the way.
Okay. What was
like
close?
Chizzy. Haley had 30 points, George had 24. And then the next, who do you think was next after Haley and George, and how many points do you think they had?
After Haley and George, I don't know, Emmett?
Flick and Simon each had 10 points, and Emmett had 9.
Yeah. I find this blows my mind that you auction. I know how seriously you take the Chizzy, and that you in the final week you put somebody else is able to hand out your points.
Well, I did this one time because Flick was raising money for the cause against Alzheimer's. And I thought, that cause really spoke to me. And I was like, what can I donate? Because people were donating, the Survivor players were donating their clothes. So I was like, I don't have anything of value to give. And then I thought, I have my Chizzy points. They're valuable. And so we did a raffle. And then people would donate a certain amount of money to get a certain amount of raffle tickets. And then we did the raffle. And then someone named Laura won the raffle. And then
Laura from this season?
No, it was a different. Can you imagine?
She said, "I give 3
Then she'd be giving them all to George."
To Laura. Yeah.
No, I think you go George
for being a great juror. Yeah. All right. No. Shannon, what's next for you?
Nothing. This was it. This was my whole life.
Okay. Listen to Shannon Guss talk about Claim to Fame this week, which was very, very fun. And then we got to figure out what to do next. Are we watching Big Brother?
Stop trying to get me to watch Big Brother. I thought you were just going to fill me in.
Yeah. Are we watching George and his dog?
That was tonight. I think I'm going to catch up on it. I think this was one episode.
Okay.
Do like a one-off special.
All right. Can we see if we can
get
that? I'll get a link to that for the patrons.
We're going to watch Amazing Race. George is on that for real.
Oh. Yeah, I got to come on maybe the first episode.
We're going to do like a George series of podcasts.
Anything
I'm sure that will give us endless work. I'm sure that that's going to be a long commitment for you.
Yeah, I would love it. Okay.
Do you think so? Right. Well, this has been a fun time, Rob. I've had a really good time.
Do you know how many shows I have to watch that don't have George on them? I would be a delight to watch anything with George.
I want you to come on and fill me in on Big Brother, but I want to react to it how you react to the Australian Survivor players from this season. Be like, oh my God, there was a huge fight and I'd be like,
but I don't even get like that about Big Brother.
Well, you're going to need to start. You're going to need to get in with the 211 votes, Rob. Okay. Tell me that it made you feel something.
in Big Brother, they can only vote for 2 people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that better
So
or worse? Should we get into it? Well, we can do it
you
on our
really,
recaps.
yeah, you can't do
Yeah,
that complicated of a vote. All right.
yeah.
Shannon Guss, incredible job once again, is back with us. Shannon, where can people keep up with you?
At Shannon Gates on Twitter and Instagram, and I guess Threads, but I'm not really. Are you still threading?
I
Did you
have
give
not been,
up?
but I heard they made some updates.
You gave up on Threads?
I
You,
did.
the
It
number one
wasn't.
Threads
I
person?
didn't. Shannon, I've been very busy.
With what?
What do you think I do all day?
Tell me.
I got all these podcasts, and then I have a family, and then they're like,
In sports carnivals?
yeah, both things are like,
Boring?
we need more of your time. You're not doing a good job. And I'm like,
I
oh,
think you're doing a
all
good
right. Well,
job.
I guess, all right, Threads. I guess you're going to be on the back burner for a little bit.
But I noticed you're still tweeting. Or Xing, whatever it's called.
I mean, links to podcasts and stuff like that. I don't think I'm really been doing too much like.
No, you were tweeting about that Big Brother special last night. You've been tweeting.
That was, you want me to put my Big Brother thoughts on Threads instead? I want people to see them.
See, I knew Threads would die within the course of this podcast series.
Mm-hmm.
That was a private bet I made with myself because you're really excited about it. And I'm like, it's not going to last very long.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you have things to do, Rob, and you have a family. I have cats. You are my family. So yeah, I mean, what am I doing now? Currently nothing. Survivor UK will happen, as we've discussed. Survivor US will happen, also discussed. Australian Survivor will be back next year. And then other than those things, I pretty much just go back into the little box that I'm kept in when Survivor's not on. So this apartment.
Okay. All right. Well, Shannon, this was such a delight. Thank you for going on this journey.
No, I don't want it
with
to
me.
end. Should we just talk about stupid stuff more? No.
I do have other podcasts.
No, well,
today.
that's fine. I mean, it's 1 a.m. for me, but I'm happy to chat. This has been, I really want to thank all the listeners.
Yes. Thanks everybody who came on this journey.
Yes,
you all were amazing. We loved getting to do this. Looking forward to figuring out more fun stuff to do together. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.